Hello and welcome to Quays News. I'm Josh Brooks.
And I'm Victoria Haynes. Here's what's coming up on the programme today. A group of charity volunteers slept out this weekend to raise awareness and money to combat homelessness.
Totally exhausted, mentally, physically, just aching from head to toe, and I don't know how these guys do it day in, day out.
A new report suggests many women feel unsafe running alone.
And I'm at the Quays Live Arena as the dispute breaks out between Manchester's two biggest entertainment venues.
We start with a breaking story and reports of an explosion in a house in Bury.
Greater Manchester Fire and Rescue Services say multiple crews are currently at the scene. Here is our reporter Adam with more on this.
A woman in her 70s has been taken to hospital with serious injuries after reports of a house explosion in Bury. Local emergency services were called to the Fishpool area of Bury at around 11:30 a.m. on February 28th. Local councillor Tamar Tariq says that a local school had to be evacuated due to the amount of smoke, and those residing in the surrounding area should close their windows and close their doors.
Co-op Live on the Etihad campus will become the largest arena in the UK when it opens its doors in April.
While this is big news for concert goers, Co-op Live's main competitor, the AO Arena, has launched a dispute over licensing rules and opening times at the new venue.
We can now cross live to Kira Doody to give us more on this developing story.
Thanks, Vicky. Yeah, that's right. Well, the weather here is a bit indicative of the mood between Manchester's two biggest arenas that are currently caught up in a feud over a licensing issue. Co-op Live applied for a licence that would allow their bars to stay open until 2 a.m. and allow them to remain open 24/7 for up to 25 times a year. AO Arena expressed their concerns at a licensing hearing last week that saw the two arenas go head-to-head. Gary Grant was at the hearing representing the AO Arena. He said that the new arena's plans could cause disruption to neighbouring residents, create transport issues and damage the existing reputation of the culture and leisure life in Manchester. Co-op Live responded to these claims, saying that they were disappointed and that the AO's objections were deeper rooted in competition than licensing. At this point, Co-op Live have revised their application and an outcome of the application is expected by the end of the week.
Thanks, Kira. Homelessness is on the rise, but what's it like to sleep on the street? Volunteers from Two Brews Homeless Charity found out by spending 55 hours sleeping rough, helping raise money and awareness. I went down to find out more. If you were getting off the tram at St Peter's Square this weekend, you might have seen this group of homeless charity volunteers huddled beneath the arches. Unfortunately, they were not the only ones.
There were 62 people sleeping rough just in this one spot last night. So we just need to make people in authority aware how bad the situation is instead of turning a blind eye.
For 55 hours, the group will swallow their pride and sleep rough like those they usually help.
I've left the lads in the arches sleeping and just come for a little bit of a walk. But guys, look at that. This is Manchester. We're one of the richest countries and this is happening.
As the next day drew to a close, Two Brews held an outreach night where they hand over food to those in Manchester who need it. 7 nights a week, 365 days a year. The queue is served by Two Brews volunteers, many of whom used to be homeless themselves.
I started helping them because for the years that I was out here homeless myself, they helped me. If it weren't for them, I'd probably still be out here on drugs, sleeping in a doorway.
1 in 74 people in Manchester experience homelessness, the third highest in the country.
People can't afford to have the electric on at home, people can't afford to feed themselves, people just basically can't afford to live anymore.
And what do you think could be done to help?
I think they need to open some more of these derelict buildings up and get people indoors and inside.
Totally exhausted, mentally, physically, just aching from head to toe, and I don't know how these guys do it day in, day out. It's easy for us to do it because we know we've got a finish time when we're going home, But if you're on the streets, you don't know when you're going to go under a roof again.
I got made homeless in July.
This is Frank, not his real name. He didn't want his face on camera, but did want to speak about the work of Two Brews.
These people are just so kind and so helpful to people. It's just like, and you get some people that just walk past you and look at you in disgust because you're living on the streets. It's wrong. People need to start helping a bit more.
The next steps for those on the streets are unclear. But for these volunteers, it's a harrowing reminder of what it's like to be homeless. Josh Brooks, Quays News, Manchester.
How's the transport in your area? Well, funds are coming to the north to improve infrastructure.
The money comes from the scrapped northern leg of HS2. Our transport correspondent Max Earnshaw has more.
Thank you, Josh and Vicky. You may remember here in Greater Manchester last year, Rishi Sunak scrapped the northern phase of the HS2 high-speed rail network. That leg was originally supposed to run between Birmingham and Manchester. The decision to ditch it was criticised by a lot of northern mayors and those in the transport sector, particularly because the original plan would have seen it run as far as Leeds. At the time, he promised every penny of the £36 billion saved would be reinvested in other transport projects across the country. This week, his government has pledged the first £4.7 billion of that, with the North West set to get £1.5 billion. The rest of it will be split between the rest of the North and the Midlands. Obviously, that leaves a significant amount of the original £36 billion as yet unpledged. The PM maintains that the whole amount will be delivered, but not until 2040. He said that the funding, which he's calling Network North, represents unprecedented investment to improve roads, tackle congestion and renovate bus and train stations, particularly in rural areas. However, the Labour Party are unimpressed by Sunak's announcement. They say that the people of the North and the Midlands are sick and tired of empty promises. They point to the fact that nowhere here does the government to commit to improving public transport links, only making refurbishments. Many of these proposals only restore funding cut by past Conservative governments. In some ways, though, it doesn't matter what the government suggests. It's going to be up to local leaders in the regions receiving the money to decide what to do with it. And, as the money won't be released until April 2025, you could expect to see continued disagreements between central and local governments about transport for months to come.
The UK's medical regulator has issued an apology for its past homophobia towards medics. The General Medical Council has acknowledged that its actions led to at least 8 doctors being dismissed from their profession after they were convicted under historic homophobia laws, which were abolished in the 1960s. Some doctors say the prejudice against NHS staff is still a problem.
You know, I know many of my colleagues who have had really quite sour experiences of bullying, harassment related to their sexual orientation or their gender identity. It's incredibly sad.
Pubs and the rest of the hospitality sector are hoping for additional support from the government in next Wednesday's budget. Local pubs are hoping for a cut in duty tax. Dan Keane reports.
The classic British pub, like the New Oxford in Salford, is awaiting the announcement of the government's annual budget. Landlords are hoping for a reduction in beer and cider duty, which is currently more than 3 times the average seen across Europe, to reflect the importance of British pubs.
It's very unfair to small to medium-sized businesses. It's very unfair to pubs in general. I think pubs are very important for the British culture. I think they have to do something for, especially community pubs, and they have to do something with the beer duty, you would hope.
The government announced in September that alcohol tax would be frozen until August, but landlords and breweries feel that duty tax should be cut on draft beer and cider.
I would like to see at least a freeze in business rates. I would like to see a VAT reduction for the whole hospitality, hotels, the whole catering industry.
CAMRA is one of the most successful consumer organisations in Europe. Its chairman, Nick Antona, is calling on the government to help pubs and the hospitality sector ahead of the budget next Wednesday.
What we are asking the Chancellor for next week's budget is to kind of like look favourably on the brewing and pub industry, One of those could be to increase the duty differential between the on and off trade. We're also, as part of our ask, looking for, again, for them to do something about business rates. You need to look after the pub as social centres of communities. After all, they are a force for good, and we need to preserve and save our heritage.
Dan Keane, Quays News, Salford.
A new study from the University of Manchester has found that 68% of women in the Northwest experience harassment while running.
I've spoken to some of the women affected.
Lacing up your trainers and going for a jog is a popular pastime for many. But how safe are women going on their evening run?
A car full of lads like kind of my age pulled over and they were just like yelling at me out the window, and like, you know, when a car drives slowly next to you and they were just shouting out the window, and I didn't know, like, I had my headphones on so I couldn't hear exactly what they were saying, but you know, and it's just like, you know, people are saying horrible things. So I'd say that was the most dramatic, like, one that stands out that upset me, but then it's pretty much every run that I get beeped at, or like people shout, like men out the window of their vans, like, will shout stuff at me.
So how can women stay safe while staying fit? Some women have turned to run clubs to feel safe after having bad experiences running alone.
My first half marathon that I ran, I remember getting chased by like a white van for ages and just getting screamed at the window. Didn't really feel safe anymore running, so when I moved up to Manchester shortly afterwards, I was a bit scared of moving to such a big city. I'd lived in kind of smaller Wales, so I wanted to find a group of people that I could run with so it'd feel a little bit safer going out.
I've experienced catcalling in Edinburgh, I've experienced it in Manchester. I think, you know, it's not fair. We should be able to go out and run wherever we want without the fear of being unsafe.
68% of women said they'd experienced some form of harassment, ranging from catcalling to being followed.
So do you feel safe running in Manchester?
It's just awful because it just puts you off doing things. Like, I love running, and it just, every time I'd go out, I'm just a bit like, I don't know if it's going to be a good run or a horrible run, and you're just like, it just makes you feel so like targeted and watched and just uncomfortable.
Major cities are taking steps in the right direction, but more changes need to be made to keep women safe on Manchester's streets.
The criminologists behind this study hope that their research will create a bigger conversation around harassment and abuse and begin a widespread culture shift.
And finally, are you trying to get a tan without leaving Greater Manchester? Well, maybe Stretford is the answer. Our reporter Jason Darby tells us why.
After a long winter, you may be looking for a little bit of winter sun. Maybe you're looking at Lanzarote, Benidorm, Tenerife for a few days away. But have you thought of coming here to Stretford? Trafford Council has unveiled this addition to the town centre. It's funded by the government's plan to improve the look of our town centres, improve the economy, get more money into the shops and local businesses around here, and improve the livelihoods of the people of Stretford.
So I live down the road, and I think with the work that's going on here, I think they've done it the worst way possibly. Like, the way they're doing it doesn't seem the best, and it's caused a lot of issues. And it's like, this road especially, it's a dangerous one, and I appreciate the cycle lanes and all that, but I can't think for traffic it's that good.
It really looks great, but it's just in the wrong situation, and it's like for children playing on the areas here on a main road.
Last year, Trafford Council complained of a £288 million shortfall in their funds, but some residents are arguing that this plan and this delivery isn't quite what they had in mind to improve Stretford. As you can see, it isn't quite complete yet.
I think if I'm going to hop on a sun lounger, I'd rather be in Spain. Don't you think, Vicky?
Yes, I'm not sure Stretford is the answer. Anyway, that's all for tonight on Quays News. On behalf of all of our team, thank you for watching and good night.